You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, I want to bring in someone who is with a part of the lawsuit that's taking place there in Georgia, and that is Francys Johnson, board chair of the New Georgia Project. Francis, glad to have you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. This is a huge issue here, because what we're looking at, Republicans across the country are looking at Georgia and they're saying, oh, we're going to follow the exact same thing they did in order to pass this legislation.
That's correct. And Georgia is setting the blueprint for the rest of the nation that wants to resurrect Jim Crow. Georgia did it in time for Palm Sunday, but make no mistake about it, the other states that were in play in this past election, the failed bid of Donald Trump to be reelected, will follow suit as well.
I got a slight issue here with your picture. We're going to get that fixed. And so we're going to pull you up in just 1 second. Let me bring up our panel here. Michael Imhotep, he's the host of the African History Network show. Dr. Nyambe Carter, Howard University Department of Political Science. Robert Patillo, Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition Peachtree Street Project. Robert, I want to go to you first. Then I'm going to go back to Francis. Georgia is ground zero. And for the people who are saying this is no big deal, no. You start going down, this is absolute, everything, every lie that Donald Trump told, every lie, Republicans essentially put it in this bill to try to do exactly what he wanted to do, and that is steal the election.
Well, something to understand. Reverend Jackson has been talking about for the last 30 or 40 years, this concept of the mechanics of voter suppression. We think about voter suppression as being Bull Connor, standing outside with water hoses and dogs, or axe-hand-o-matics, sending people away from the polling locations in the 60s. Modern voter suppression is about skimming. It's about what can you do to stop 1 out of every 100 or 2 out of every 100 people who are against you from having access to the ballot. Because if you look at that Stacey Abrams race back in 2018, 1 out of every 100 people turns into 1% in the polls at the end of the day. And when you're talking about a race that comes down to 1 to 2%, all you have to do is skim off every 1 out of every 100 votes to move an election. And we knew as soon as we saw Raphael Warnock take that seat, as soon as we saw John Ossoff take that seat, as soon as we saw Joe Biden win the state of Georgia, that voter suppression would come back alive and well. And just as Joe Biden said, this isn't Jim Crow, this is Jim Eagle. This is a step above Jim Crow, primarily because they're using every legal apparatus possible and circumvention of the will of the people of Georgia. Georgia is a state, as I've said many times, and I'm sure people can quote it by now, it's 35% black, 15% Hispanic, 6% Asian American, 52% women, and one of the largest LGBTQ capitals in the country. Because of that, we have the demographic advantage in the state. The only way to beat a demographic advantage is to go to the refs, is to change the rules from under. As most deaf ones said, we start keeping pace, they start switching up the tempo, and that's what they are doing. First, in 2004, 2005, they wanted to have the voter ID bill then, which required you to buy a $10 state voter ID because they said in-person voter fraud was the issue. We took that to court and got struck down as a poll tax. Now they're saying that absentee ballots are the place where voter fraud is taking place. That's because back then, elderly white voters, old Confederates, were voting for Republicans. Now elderly voters are old veterans of the civil rights movement, and they're voting for Democrats, and now they have to make it harder for them. There's no rational basis for these laws to be put in place. Therefore, they are trying to skirt and circumvent democracy in order to put an oligarchical and an autocratic Republican regime in place that does not reflect the will of the people of the state of Georgia. And they understand that this is the last stand of the Confederacy. It wasn't Bull Run. It wasn't First and Second Manassas. The last battle of the Confederacy is taking place right now in Georgia. The 2022 election will be that battlefield. If you can beat them at their own game, if you can beat them playing by their own rules, then I think that puts the death nail in the end of this battle going forward. It won't be the end of the end, but the end of this fight right now. We have to keep going. I think we have to use every mechanism possible to do so.
Let's go back to Francys. Francys, the thing that we're looking at here, first of all, this lawsuit that's being filed, Mark Elias is filing on behalf of the New Georgia Voter Project, as well as Black Voters Matter and others. The only way you can fight this thing is in the courts.
Absolutely. The New Georgia Project, as well as Black Voters Matter and Rise, will mortgage every asset we have to defend the right to vote. This attempt to resurrect Jim Crow will be met toe-to-toe in the federal courts. This is a violation of the Voting Rights Act, and we expect the federal courts to do what they've often had to do when Georgia demonstrates that it's got the can't get rights, the won't get rights, to put it in its place and remind Georgia that the Constitution is still the supreme law of the land.
But the problem that you have here is that Republicans, led by Supreme Court Justice John Roberts and that traitor Clarence Thomas, they actually gutted Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act, the pre-clearance measure as well. And so now you have these Republican judges. Supreme Court is a 6-3 majority. I suspect this is going to go all the way because they want this. They do not want anyone to tell them what to do. This is also why there has to be a John Lewis Voting Act out of this Congress, and you got to have Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema to get out their asses and stop trying to embrace the filibuster and get this done.
That's right. We have a date with destiny. At one point, the Senate has got to determine whether the filibuster is more important than freedom. But until that happens, we have got to use every tool at our advantage and at our disposal. And so the federal courts have been where we've turned. And we are asking for immediate injunctive relief to prevent this law from truly taking effect. And we expect to have some action on that. I do expect this is going to go all the way. But remember, we've got municipal elections coming up, and we've got a showdown for the governor's mansion in Georgia in 2022. And so we've got to do everything we can. You should know, your listeners should know, that despite all of the voting suppression that they've thrown at us, we still turned out in record numbers. We flipped this state blue. We captured 2 United States Senate seats that we will hold. And we're determined that the new Georgia is here to stay.
All right, then. Francys, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.